Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From comics, TV, and movies, we'll go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Negative Zone to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. My name is Chris.
I am the podcaster of Mischief, Tress Snail.
Alliance Assemble.
There we go. Volume 5. Here we go.
Yeah.
Halfway to double digits. Crazy.
Oh, we're getting there. We're halfway there.
Yeah. How you doing today?
Getting to that point. Then I hear we get a free set of steak knives that are Marvel themed when we get to that point.
Yeah, I would want mine definitely to be Blade themed, like how he has those Blade or Deadpool, like those samurai swords, kind of like, but in steak cutting style. I think that would be pretty good.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well, getting ready to go on some vacation time, much needed vacation. So kind of looking forward to that. Got some packing left to do, but all in all, it's been an interesting week at work, but it's nothing too bad, but just interesting.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm doing well. I have some new gear over at Geekverse. We're doing new stuff with camera, so I was talking about that with Greg. That's always fun when you get new stuff. It's like the necessary evil of, like, it's great to get new gear. I'm happy our fan supports, but at the same time, it opens up like a whole can of worms. Like, okay, well, this program doesn't work with this anymore, so I got to do this. So luckily, things are kind of going good. And other than life, I think it's pretty good around here. Things are starting to open back up. Theaters are opening up. We just got our list of theaters. We're getting like the Dark Knight trilogy and Jurassic Park and stuff like that, all for like $5. So I don't know how many I'll see, but it's nice to know that, they're kind of open and available. When you look at the seating plan, though, there's so like few seats in there. There's maybe a total of like 20 seats. It's a weird thing to open up the app and just see like 20 seats available, and it's not because it's sold out. It's like, wow, strange times.
Yeah, that's all we will allow is 20 seats there.
Yeah.
You said Jurassic Park's coming out. That's kind of interesting timing when you get the the Dobson being recast, Dodgson.
Yeah, we got a couple.
I got Dodgson here.
No one cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. We got a bunch of them. It's funny. The only like trilogy though we got was Dark Knight. But we got some Lord of the Rings there, Harry Potter, Spider-Verse, Wonder Woman. So there's some good options. And there's some classics like Jaws. And the one that I'm actually really excited for, because I've never seen it on the big screen for obvious reasons, is Friday the 13th. I'm a massive horror fan, so that's not really one that gets played around in theaters, right? So the fact that it's going to be on screens, that's one that I think I will make a trip, get the mask, buy. Honestly, I want to see the movies, but it's the movie theater popcorn. I think we already talked about this once on Marvel Alliance. I've missed that popcorn so much. I think they sprinkle some sort of drug, because I can never make it as good as they do, So I'm excited for that portion.
Yeah, you can't beat it. Maybe a good drive-in movie too.
Oh yeah, exactly. I can't remember. There's a good double feature coming up here in Kelowna, so I'm though there at least there's a few ways to kind of get some normalcy back in life. Life is still pretty weird, but it's you got to take the little things, like Zombieland says, right? To enjoy the little things
as best we can these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're here. We're getting ready to talk some Marvel. But we had some great shows this past week too, and so we got some good ones coming up this week as well.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this on the Monday, by the time this has dropped, we had our first ever Flashpoint, our first ever crossover drop yesterday. It was myself, Katie from I Love That Movies and Stars Alliance, Greg, who's another host of Superhero Discussions, and Lisa from I Love That Movie, who is a guest host on our roster right now and maybe do more of this in the future. So that was really good. It was the animated film. I think it's about an hour or so, but it was fun. It was fun to talk. It was the first time doing that collection of people, and Flashpoint is just a great movie, so we did that. Tuesdays always got DC Alliance. I got to guest on there last week. I'm sorry, Chris, but I had to throw out the bat signal. I went, Michael Keaton. I had to jump over for a little bit, but they're welcome to come on at any point. Wednesday, what do you got going on? I'm pretty excited for this, because this is like an all-time classic storyline you're covering.
Yeah, we are covering Brock from Marvel Squadcast is coming on, and he has selected Reign of the Supermen, so the third part of the Death of Superman trilogy. Yeah,
very interesting story. That's one of those that's just one of those key stories. Not even that it's perfect, just that it's talked about so much still. It's just one of those huge comic books, so that's going to be really exciting. And then Thursday is Slice of Film this week. Katie, I don't know who she has on. I think she's having a guest on that is not on the network, but she's covering Driving Miss Daisy. It's someone her to see it for a while. So again, one of these films that she's not seen before, so that'll be interesting. And then Friday, they'll be kicking off over at Superhero Discussion Season 2 of the animated series. They just wrapped up the finale and some Lobo episodes and stuff like that. So that was really really cool. But yeah, they're already on season 2, so some good stuff going on. And the other thing I got to say is, by the time this comes out, it's not July, but it'll be close when we hear from you next. Just again, a big thank you, because it's been a month of just kind of goodness. It's been, people have been really receptive. Each week has done better than last, and that's just because all you guys, one, just continue to listen, you guys and gals, but two, spreading the word. So we can't thank you enough. Whether you're supporting our show, the other shows, doesn't really matter. You're just supporting us as a whole, and again, we thank you. It's been a great month. It flew by, honestly, like I talked about like I talked about last week. Yeah, but it's been good. So I'm very excited for the future.
No, definitely. And then we got, like you said, we have our first Patreon content, like kind of our first major Patreon crossover stuff. Hopefully next month. I know Travis Hines and I will be hopefully doing a DCAU retrospective this coming month. So hopefully we'll get that scheduled and put that out there to give some more stuff for our patrons.
Yeah, and that'll be good timing, because in August that they officially said that Man of Tomorrow, whatever, is dropping August 23rd on VOD and whatnot. So yeah, it's gonna be, there's some stuff down the pike. Same thing as the world being crazy. It's like there's still some good superhero content out there. And I guess I should say this, probably they'll be talking about this on DC Alliance's Doom Patrol that came back. So I imagine that's what they'll be covering. But
so good.
Yeah.
So good.
So you want me to get into some of the poll results from last week?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's see what our listeners thought about my fact and fiction.
Yeah, so for yours, I'm going to start with the one that had the most majority of vote, and then the other ones were pretty close. So this one was MCU's first X-Men film will feature a main film that was not seen in live action before. 67 went fact, 33 went fiction. So that one, not overwhelming, but a big majority kind of agreed with us on that one. And then this one gets a little closer. It's a live action Spider-Man actor, and I put Toby, Andrew, Tom, will appear in Spider-Verse 2. 55% said fiction, and then 45%.
I'm surprised.
I was first of all, I'm just surprised that was that close, but I just think I honestly look at that movie, I just say it's inevitable. I really do, especially because they last month when they did that watch along on Twitter said, hey, we talked to Sony and they said no, too much too soon. But you would think after big success, fans and critics love it. They won an Oscar, so it's just like, I feel now they have kind of carte blanche to do whatever, but people still, why do you think people are maybe more on the fiction side than fact on that one?
I don't know. Like you said, it was so close. So, we had, I kind of brought up, they kind of did those kind of homages to, Spider-Man 3 and all the Tobey Maguire stuff at that point. They didn't do anything with Andrew's version of it or Tom Holland's, but, maybe it's just, they don't want it shoehorned in, but it's a good Easter egg at that point. Like with everything, would be interesting to see if they have a big part in it, but I don't know how Sony wants to relive those series at that point, especially with everything with Tom Holland being always in flux and what they can and can't use with him as the agreement. So, but yeah, that's interesting. But it was close, so
yeah.
It's not like they're not open to it. Maybe we just want to see what the story is to see what new cameos we do get.
And then the last one I checked, and luckily we have a winner, but last time we went to bed, it was 50%. It was half of the new Avengers team, half the roster will be made up of new characters. Right now, 57% fiction and then 43% fact. So fiction takes it, but like I said, last night, even right before, a few hours before this podcast, it was 50-50. So again, that's the same. That one I can see why people are a bit divided, because you don't know which way to do with the new Avengers team. Do they go, hey, we want all our new heavy hitters, Black Panther, Carol Danvers, a new Cap, or do we want to like spice it up and get a bunch of new people, right? So I can see that one. I was not surprised was divided. Spider-Verse, I was taken off guard, but that one's like, yeah, because you and me even went back and forth last week. I think I went with fiction, but I went very tough because, like I said last week, for me it all depends on the number of people. The bigger the roster gets, I think more room you have to play. But that makes sense why it was close.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's one that you can easily go one way or another, even those that were fiction probably could see the other side as well. So so good results at that point. We did have a fan question from the previous week that we missed. Our good buddy Legendary Bearded Geek wrote us in, so I made sure to put it all in there because some reason it got buried. So sorry for last week, but let's get to it now. He said, something to add to the reveal of Spider-Man's identity is what's going to happen to Vulture. Will he break out to save Peter for saving him? Because at the end of Homecoming, the guys in the jail knew his daughter was dating Peter, but had no idea that they were one and the same. And Vulture lied, saying that if he knew who he was, he would have killed him already. So now everyone knows he was lying. Are we looking at a redemption?
So this this is tough because I wonder. Because I have a fact or fiction that has to go into this.
All right.
So it's I'll let you. Well, how do I want to say? Redemption's a tough word, but I think it's in play because clearly the second you have a villain that could destroy a hero, not do that, there is some doubt cast. I think we've seen that in many times. Loki in Marvel, Kylo Ren in Star Wars Force Awakens. Yeah, he kills his dad, but he can't kill this pretty girl who he kind of likes, you know? So that's the thing where it's like, once you see a villain just for a second just waver from their position, that means they're not fully gone yet. So I think it's in play. As far as Michael Keaton appearing, I will keep my thoughts on it till fact or fiction, but don't worry, we're going to return this. But I have it tied in just because Michael Keaton's a hot button topic right now, you know? He's in Morbius, he was in Spider-Man, he's going to maybe be in another Batman, so he's like one of the most wanted guys right now. So what do you think about a possible redemption for the Vulture?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's one of these things that he's kind of playing with his food. He wants it on his terms necessarily. So he could easily play this off in prison that, well, I had no idea. Well, now I'm going, he can play that off that he didn't know. He can still easily play that off at that point. And now that he knows and can see both where he is, I just don't see it happening. He's been, throughout Homecoming, he was very villainous. I mean, I think Michael Keaton plays an awesome villain in so many different ways. And in that movie, there was, outside of him protecting his family and being the family guy, I don't see him making that turn.
Yeah.
It would just be, it just wouldn't fit yet.
I agree.
So, but I'd love to hear what you think, Legendary Bearded Geek, what you feel about that one. But yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for writing in.
And then, is that all the questions we have, or is it time for news now?
Yeah, well, we can go jump into our topic before we get into news.
Yeah, because I have other questions that were put in, but that was towards our main topic. So yeah, our main topic, as always on Twitter, we throw out options and whatnot, and you guys vote for Fantastic Four in the MCU. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because clearly Fox has been bought by Disney a while back ago, and all we know is that there's plans, and all we know is just Feige saying, hey, we have plans for the mutants and Fantastic Four. So I just wanted to start this by asking you, what is your history with Fantastic Four, as far as where they range in your fandom? Are they kind of higher tier, lower tier, or how do you, I think I know, but how do you feel about the other movies that have happened?
Well, I'd say Fantastic Four is it's always been a classic kind of team. I would say they rank middle tier with me in fandom. I've read them, I've collected them a little bit, but they're definitely not prevalent in my collections at that. And I did some of the Ultimate run. I've done some of the some of their run. I think around when I got into it with Civil War, interestingly enough, I started collecting them a bit, but it never quite grabbed me as much as some of the other characters. Again, not necessarily bad, it's just not, as some of our other people have said, it's not my thing. But I am excited about getting a good interpretation, because to be perfectly honest, I mean, it was kind of the Jessica Alba versions of Fantastic Four just had a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
It was a good first run at it, but I definitely don't make an attempt to go back and watch them. I saw them. I had my many problems with it and said, all right, well, that was a movie. And I did not ever see, and I don't care that it's on Disney Plus, I have not seen the Trank version.
You've not seen Fan Four Stick?
I have not.
Oh my goodness! I think we might have to do a watch along one day. Put that in the books, fan.
I'm not opposed to it, but nothing has drawn me to say, I have a choice between continuing my rewatch of Rebels and Fantastic Four. The choice, I'm going with Rebels.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, I'm going to put a bookmark on that. And okay, one day we will return that, and we'll do that. A watch along. So yeah, maybe if there's an announce for F4 or something, or we're lighter on content, because that's incredible. You haven't seen it. That's crazy.
I'm glad it's on Disney Plus, because I don't feel like I have to. I'm already paying for it, so
can
it would just be time.
Can I ask you, because obviously you live in America, I live in Canada, we have different versions of it. Do you have a Marvel Cinematic Universe tab, or is it just Marvel movies tab.
It's just Marvel.
I dislike that very much because I like the OCD me wants it all categorized, and especially just because it's weird when it's like, okay, you have Infinity War, Endgame, and then it's like X-Men. And well, it's funny because we have the X-Men movies on Canada Disney Plus, so
okay.
I'm not sure how it's going to work in America, but like the F-bomb is still in the Wolverine and Days of Future Past. They're still in that movie, and they didn't bleep them out at all, so I was always caught off guard. But it's weird to see like, you know, Endgame and then like the Wolverine Fan Four Stick and then like Fantastic Four Rise of Silver Surfer. I feel like it's not a big deal. They're Disney. I think they could figure it out, but I would love one for an MCU tab, and I'd also love for that tab should also be, you know, I would like it chronological order, but then I'd like a story chronological order as far as like the release, and then one. I hope they do that in the future. It's not a big deal. I can figure out. It just bugs me when I see Marvel movies. Like, you could just separate them very easily, but they don't.
No, I mean, I think they've done a slightly better job with Star Wars. I think.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I know they do it a little bit better with their Disney movies in the sense of like they have a whole section for Cars and you know, Toy Story and things like that.
They're
so,
collections. That's what they call them. The collections.
So yeah, they divide those into better collections. I mean, that was what Bob Iger was supposed to be dealing with, his quote unquote retirement per se. Before he got called back into the CEO, he was meant to fix the issues going on with the platform. Not that they were huge, but a lot of these little annoyances that they could have done a better job.
Yeah,
you know?
Now he's dealing with something like just a tad bigger, you know. But
you know, why not go with the everyone else that comes into a new job and dealing with this? I say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to add on the F4 as just overall thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited. They rank in middle tier for me, just because of my others I've gone on, you know, record on Spider-Man, X-Men, Daredevil. They just rank just a bit higher for me, but I definitely don't dislike them. I just think I like what I'm hearing about with their reemergence back into the Marvel comics. I've heard positive things with it.
Yeah, so it's funny. I find like one day I've always thought, and maybe we will do this next year when it's April Fool's, I thought it would be a good idea for the DC host to host our show and us to host that show. So we might do that in the future. But the thing is, because it's funny, because I feel on DC, you and I have similar likes, but you and I definitely like things a bit more different. But Marvel, you and I are pretty in sync so far. And I didn't even fully know this before we started this. Like, we have like good discussions, and that's why I want you and me to host a show together. But you and I kind of have the same favorites as Marvel, and I'm kind of the same thing with Fantastic Four. I don't know if it's just because as a kid I had the animated series of Spider-Man and X-Men, and then when Tobey's movie came out, that was big, and X-Men. But even with Blade, that came out, I gleaned on these people, and 2005 wasn't the time, because I think 2005 is when the first Fantastic Four came out. Or maybe is that too old? Is it, or too late? Maybe it's 2003ish. I don't know. I'll look it up after.
I'll
you look it up.
Yeah.
So either way, when it came out, it wasn't at the point where I always say for my Geek First listeners, when The Departed came out, that was a movie where it's like, oh, I don't need an action movie. I'm like starting to mature as like a moviegoer. I'm enjoying a movie where it's just about character and dialogue. So it was one of those, even at a point where I was still kind of enjoying just like any superhero movie, I just didn't enjoy them. Not in a way that I disliked them, but I just didn't gleam on them. I didn't read much of them as a kid, and even in video games, they just didn't pull me in. And the comics I have read, I've always liked them, but I've never been like, man, I really need to read a bunch of solo runs. And that's definitely on me, because, and maybe we'll do that one day. Maybe for Comic Club, we'll put a bunch of Fantastic Four comic books, and you guys will pick them. But
I think their power sets are very interesting and very cool. And I love that Invisible Woman is the most powerful of the entire group.
Yeah.
I mean, I think her, when she does go to that Omega level at that point, you know, she is hard to beat. Okay, so here are the dates. The first Fantastic Four film, titled simply Fantastic Four, 2005.
Okay.
Rise of the Silver Surfer was 2007, and then Fantastic Four, the Trank version with Michael B. Jordan, is August of 2015.
Okay, yeah, that makes, I wasn't sure 2005, 2007, that seems later, but yeah, I guess I was right. So yeah, Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Chris and I hope you're enjoying another edition of the Marvel Alliance podcast. We're about to throw some ads right now. These ads help build the channel. They help support every single show here on the feed. The thing is, who we're partnered with, we don't get to select the ads and we don't get to select the volume of the ads, unfortunately. So we're giving you this warning to adjust your headsets, turn down that volume so you can listen to all these ads and support the Geek Ultimate Alliance. I'm going to give you a countdown. You're going to hear some ads and then you're going to go right back into the episode. 3, 2, 1. I do enjoy them. I think I'm more happy for the fans of Fantastic Four. I am somebody that I'm going to see this day one. I see almost all comic movies day one because I'm a big fan of them and I've been that way my whole life. So when it comes out, obviously MCU, I'm already a mass fan, so I'll be seeing it and I'll be excited because I do think those characters deserve justice. I think they deserve a good movie. Like you said, those first two are not awful, but they're not. They're just very cheesy and sometimes very bland. There is some bad stuff, like they kind of got the classic, Green Lantern parallax, like Galactus smoke monster in the second one. Like there's some. We kind of talked about this last week with James Cameron's Spider-Man. Those movies a lot of times feel like, oh, we can't have like a big dude who eats planets and wearing a helmet. Just make him a cloud monster, and that's what those definitely. All the older X-Men and Spider-Man movies suffer from that sometimes, but those ones felt like they suffered a lot. So,
and that's going to be the toughest part for them because Galactus is so tied with the Fantastic Four. That's the mistakes they have to rectify and saying, how can we do this and not be laughed out of the theater? That's a tough thing for them to figure out and do. And there are lots of different things, but we have gotten Fantastic Four movie. It's been called The Incredibles, and we're crying out loud. If The Incredibles can get a Fantastic Four movie right, it's not too hard of a nut to crack, but there's your blueprint.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's been the thing for years, right? And I know people have talked about like, oh, I really want Brad Bird to do it. I like Brad Bird. I don't think I need him to do it because I just don't need him to do Incredibles karaoke, which I may be a minority, but I feel that's what Incredibles 2 was. Incredibles 2 to me is just almost a remake of the first one, just a little slightly different. I was one of my most disappointing movies. So I would like someone with some new blood in there to do it. And as far as, like I said before, I know what it feels like to have a character done poorly and you just feel, oh man, I really want to see that. And that's why for me, again, F4 is not one of my kind of pillars, but I know many people that they love Reed, they love Sue, they love Human Torch, they love The Thing, I'm a Doctor Doom guy, but I'm not a Fantastic Four guy, but I want them to get that version when it hits theaters and go, man, we finally got a version I can love and watch and not have to maybe cringe at some moments or kind of get laughed at or joked at. That's what I'm more excited for is the fans. And I'm more excited for their outside characters, Doctor Doom, Silver Surfer, Galactus. We already talked about Skrulls. I think they bring a lot. Oh yeah, they have like this chunk of the MCU, much like the X-Men, that was just missing, right? And I'm very excited for them to bring that in. And I think the casting could be a lot of fun. I know there's been tons of like speculation on this and that. I know I talked about this in SC. It's a weird thing. I think John Krasinski is a good actor. I'm not on that bandwagon, but everyone else is. And I'm on the bandwagon if he gets cast, I'm fine with it. But I think that's going to be tons of fun if hopefully the world's back to normal and we get those Comic-Cons or whatever. And you have Kevin Feige and he gets to walk out the entire new Fantastic Four and the new Doctor Doom. And and that I think will get me very excited. And MCU is great at kind of putting their characters in, great at trailers. So that's what the question I was going to throw to you first is when they debut them, do you think it will be a solo Fantastic Four movie like a Captain Marvel, or do you think it will? I know she had the end credit scene, but it's like with her pager, but still it was her movie first, right? Or do you think they'll go the Civil War, Spider-Man, Black Panther style? Because I'm personally in the Civil War camp.
And that's a tough one. Since they're always known as Marvel's first family at that point, if this is going to be kind of they're still working on X-Men and they've not said anything, we know they've gone on record that Fantastic Four will be their first one to premiere in the MCU. I really would like it as a proper film because, like we said, they haven't gotten the best outing as a proper film. And I think as a way to kind of cleanse the palate and put the MCU stamp on it, that's the best way. Now, would I be opposed and be upset if they do a Civil War kind of Black Panther intro at that point where they're kind of in a team movie and they're introduced there? No, I won't be. And that's fine. But I think the way to wipe the slate clean, get them their full movie and introduce them like that.
See, my thing is I'm not opposed to it being a a full movie because of like, oh, I with the first family stuff like that, or me not liking them. It's not that. I just wonder, do you think they have the pull they used to, as far as they've been through three movies that have been mediocre to bad, I'd say, from critics and fans, right? That's my thing of Spider-Man. I feel like they put him in there because, one, they want him in the story, but I think that helped because after Amazing Spider-Man 2, the lowest Spider-Man, I think people were, there's so many people. One of my friends, Liam, who's been on Geek First before, he was saying that how he was just done with Spider-Man, and he loves Spider-Man, but he's just, after these films, he needed breaks. When they announced for Civil War, he's like, I just don't really care right now. He saw Civil War, loved it, and he said, I can't wait to see Spider-Man Homecoming, or they didn't even have the title at that point. But I wonder if that's always been my thing, is I feel like they will introduce them in a crossover, just because I feel like they got to get some of those people back that go, why do I care about Fantastic Four? I saw those movies, those were nothing good. Why should I care about them coming to the MCU? But then they come in some crossover, a bunch of cool new actors and actress in the role, they make an impression, and then you leave the theater being like, oh, I want to see a Black Panther, I want to see a Spider-Man, I want to see a Fantastic Four movie. So that's the only reason I lay that way. How do you feel about like general audiences? Do you think there, it has been a while, but even Fantastic Four, you said 2015, so it's still only been 5 years, which is not a huge amount of time.
No, it's not, and probably with everything being backed up, we're probably looking at another 5 more years.
Yeah,
almost,
true.
That where I think within 5 years we're going to see it, but I think it's going to come close to the tail end of these 5 years before we get any kind of confirmation of what we're doing with the Fantastic Four. I think you're right that, but because, like I think you're right in the sense of the mainstay audience doesn't follow the Fantastic Four as much as the name recognition of Spider-Man is more than Fantastic Four. You know, I think they know of them. I think they remember, oh yeah, I remember there was a movie way back when, but I think
here
they'll more be likely to forget about it because of how bad the last movie was, and most people didn't see it, that they'll be like, oh, I kind of forgot about them.
I think there was a time where their brand and popularity was in the top 10 of comic book IPs. I don't think they're there, and I don't even know, like, this might be controversial, I don't even know if they're in the top 20 anymore. I'm talking about Marvel and DC, so not just Marvel, because now you have people like Harley Quinn that have blown up, right? Or we've talked about Spider-Gwen. There's people that are starting to blow up, where, like, my daughter, and I don't know about your kids, it's because of what I watch too, but even in the episodes she's seen, it's like Fantastic Four they're not in them that much, so it's just, they don't have, I just wonder what our kids' generation is going to grow like, and obviously that's where the MCU comes in, and then they'll make them love them, but I feel like there's some older kids right now that it's, the Fantastic Four is just a team of Marvel characters that wear blue costumes. You know, they don't have that history, or I think you and I knew growing up. Like, oh, these guys are the legacy characters. They started it all, and it's interesting to see that they've kind of fallen a little bit, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think it's the pettiness of Marvel Comics, and I'll completely call Marvel out because they did it with X-Men too. When Fox was still holding on to Fantastic Four and X-Men, they were like the little kid who didn't like the way things went, and they're going to take their toys with them. They basically did a whole thing with X-Men where they were going to focus on the humans and kind of wipe out the mutants even more than they were before, if that's even possible. And they did the same thing with Fantastic Four. I said, are you kidding me? I mean, that's just a really poor attitude to have. And I think part of the reason why it's even gotten less is because of that maneuver. They've come back. They've done a good job, I think, with it, but I think they did a lot of damage to that brand that, I mean, let's be honest, they were going to get it back. I just think that was a really poor maneuver on both those properties' part, and a complete disrespect to the fans and the history of those characters.
Even then, it's like they had the same thing with Spider-Man. They didn't have the film rights, but they had the merchandising right. They had the toys rights. That's what I never understood. Of like, okay, you got some sour grapes, you don't have the films, but it's not like Fox like parachuted down from the roof and stole them from you in the middle of the night. There was a business. There was a business decision, and Stanley was correct to make it. The company was going bankrupt, right? So it's not like it was some shady sort of deal or something. So it was just, I agree with you, some sour grapes. They were being a little like bad about it, but it's just like I don't get what the forethought there. It must have just been they were sour about it. But that's the thing where, again, like you're talking about with the comics, how they kind of pushed them back a little bit and that hurt them in people's eyes. I agree with that because if people don't know, I'm talking about much on Marvel Alliance. I'm a huge fan of professional wrestling. I watched my whole life. I still do. And there's always this thing that people talk about like, oh, wins and losses don't really matter because it's a scripted sport, right? But they kind of do in the mainstream's audience because like if you have a guy that's constantly losing and then the mainstream comes back for like all these big events, they'll look at this guy and be like, oh, he's just a loser. And I wonder if that's kind of thought with Fantastic Four of like, not that they're losers, but it's like Marvel cut ties with them in a little bit of like, oh, you guys are almost like the distant cousin that we don't talk about. But now you're like, oh, we're welcoming you back in the family. But it's like, oh, didn't a few years ago you kind of cast them out? It's in that awkward stage where I feel like they need like a full relaunch. And obviously we talk about they're in comics now. They're starting to appear in video games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance. So I think it's slowly starting, but that's why I still think there's a chance with the movies they do that sort of relaunch and putting them in there. I do think obviously, like you said, because COVID, things are sped up or things, no, sorry, they're slowed down. The exact
let's not speed that up.
yeah. They're the exact opposite. But I still feel like, again, I'm gonna toot my own horn until it's broken. I still feel like Captain Marvel 2 is gonna be that crossover. And if it is involving Skrulls, we know they have a history of Skrulls. And that's what I was gonna ask you next. Let's say if it was a Civil War style, I'm on that Captain Marvel 2 bandwagon. But if it wasn't that, you can talk about that. But two, is there anywhere else you could see them if they said, hey, we're doing the Black Panther Spider-Man? Where would you place them to make their appearance first?
Captain Marvel just seems, depending, I mean, she even said it in Endgame, she was very not Earthbound.
Yeah.
Like she is very much cosmic at that point, and that kind of makes it difficult for Fantastic Four unless she comes back to Earth or they happen to be in space somewhere at that point, which we'll probably get into kind of our ideas of how they can introduce them appropriately. But with the current slate that we know about, I don't see it yet. So yeah, I guess Captain Marvel's there. But even then, like I said, it just depends on where Carol is in her story and what story we're getting of Carol. Because again, if we're going present day post Endgame, I don't see her Earthbound anymore. She made it a point to say that Earth is taken care of on its own. You've got the heroes, you got the stuff. I need to, and I think it was a good point for her to make. Not every world and universe has you guys on it. Yeah. And I kind of applauded that. I was like, that's a darn good point.
I know some people took it to task like, oh, it's such an easy write-off, but it's just like, you've seen these movies, they're starting to expand. There's clearly the universes out there. So, no, you bring up a good point. I just thought, because they are at times a little cosmic, right? And
I think they're very cosmic. I just don't, it can be done. It's just hard for me to see where we are with Carol at this point.
Yeah.
It's, are we going to introduce Sword? That could be really cool to have the Fantastic Four involved with Sword. I've heard that rumbling for the last couple of years of
that's what we
Sword.
That's what we thought after Far From Home, right? Because that end credit scene with Nick Fury in space. And the thing is, they've also, because if that is the case, which has always been weird for me in the Sony movies, but everyone's always speculated about the Baxter Building and how they could appear in Spider-Man 3. I think that one's completely off the table, because I don't think they would want the Fantastic Four first appearance to be in a non-movie they don't own currently. Because if you look at Disney Plus, like we were talking about, as right now, they don't have those Spider-Man MCU films up there, right? I don't think they want Reed and Sue's first appearance to be in a movie that you can't even have on your service. So I think for me, in the like you said, the current slate, if it's not Captain Marvel 2, I don't really see anything. Is there, and I'm in the camp where I don't think this would be the case, but is there any chance at a Disney Plus series?
I think that would be actually very interesting to do. It'd be kind of the first that we've seen that, and I think Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel series is going to be another one of those, of seeing that, are we going to get the first, we're going to have a limited series and then they're going to get their solo. Yeah. That would be interesting. And I think that character, both of them would be very interesting to see. I love it that we're getting Kamala Khan getting as much recognition as she's having her Miles moment too.
100%. She's blowing up. Yeah. We're going to talk about later. She's in the game. People are big fans of her. Yeah, I agree with you. She's getting that momentum.
So could it be? Yeah, but I think, again, I go back to this, and it wouldn't be a mistreatment of them putting on Disney Plus. I think we need to right the wrongs that have been done to those characters, and we need to give them that second shot of, now they're in MCU proper. Let's give them an MCU proper first time on the big screen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is that initial
Because then I
thought
get this whole Inhumans worry at that point, and
yeah. I do. Let's not bring that up again. Oh boy, I think there is that like initial jump back of whoa if you hear Fantastic Four Disney Plus series because they are such a bigger brand. But that's what we were talking about earlier. I don't know how big a brand they are anymore. It'd be interesting to see like statistics and stuff like that. But I think it will be a movie, but it wouldn't surprise me if a series happened because if you wanted to include them and Doctor Doom, you could spend a lot of time with those characters instead of just a 2-hour movie. And maybe they'll do that route where maybe, hey, they do a TV series, they put them in a crossover, and if it's really going well, here's a big space adventure. That's when you introduce the Silver Surfer or Galactus, something like that, right? So I think I am more inclined to say movie, but I don't. The other reason is because I think Fantastic Four, a D plus series, could be a huge seller. Not in the huge sellers like it's going to move millions or anything like that, but just the fact of, oh, really, they're doing Fantastic Four as a series on Disney Plus because so far all the other characters are deeper cuts. Like you said, Miss Marvel's starting to pick up. This game's going to help her big time. But Moon Knight, She-Hulk, my family, my sister, my friends, they know them because I've maybe mentioned them, but they're not like, ooh, I can't wait to see Mark Spector on Disney Plus. That's not a series so far that's going to be pushing.
I fall out of my chair if someone says that I first met. Oh, look at you, you're one of us.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I don't count the other like Hawkeye, Falcon because those are movie characters going to TV. So of course you already have an install base. I'm just talking about first time MCU character put on screen, and I think if you announce Fantastic Four as a D plus series, that would be some traction for people maybe subscribing or piquing their interest.
Yeah, and I think kind of along those lines, we know and we've heard, I think I think it was 2 shows ago that we got the word of, Winter Soldier and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, would be a different title for this. So we know there's a season 2 in the works. WandaVision, don't see it. It seems like this has been a one-off at that point.
Yeah.
And the rest of them have just appeared to be kind of one-offs. And that's fine. So you're going to need to eventually expand your Marvel TV brand or Marvel streaming brand to do that. Shield's ending this season, and I'll tell you right now, I think it's one of the best seasons they've had. I love this whole idea of time travel they're doing, and I know you and I have talked that you kind of fell off a little bit early on at that point. So, but they're not going to have a lot of vary anything yet unless they put out the Falcon and the Winter Soldier soon, and then DC's dominating, TV, and they have. To be perfectly frank, they have dominated streaming and TV when the Netflix shows were. That was great, but those have ended. So
I was going to say 100%. I was just thinking about that the other day because Doom Patrol's back, and I'm gonna watch that this weekend, and then Stargirl, which I've not watched because I was one of those I was like waiting for everyone to watch and get back to me, and I've heard nothing but great things. You've Harley Quinn, you have all those CW shows, you have Titans. I literally, it's funny about that. I was just thinking about that yesterday. Of like, man, where's all our Marvel shows? And I've heard nothing but good things with Agent of Shield last season. So eventually, it's one of those I kind of decide that if I watch this, I'm gonna wait till it's done because I'm so far ahead. I'll just wait till it's done and finish it all. But there's some things I've heard are pretty interesting, but I agree as far as TV, they're definitely lacking. They had that nice little comeback for the Netflix era. That Daredevil show was massive. Jessica Jones was just as big. Luke Cage, Iron Fist, not so much. But like that Netflix run for a while, I was like, oh, they're starting to take this over too. And then, you said,
that was where I was thinking. I said, okay, this is something we get behind, and then all the deals kind of fell through, and because of Disney Plus, and I get it, but it's just like. And then people say, well, COVID and everything. I totally get that. I understand that. It's just, I want to start seeing something of them because, again, I love the DC shows that have been out there. I just want to get back to some also seeing Marvel put some quality products out there because Iron Fist, not necessarily my favorite, but the rest of them were quality shows.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the shows present a different opportunity than the movies because I think a character, I've said this before, like Moon Knight, who is very close to my heart. I don't know if just a straight up MCU type of style movie would work for him. I like the idea of a 6 to 8 episode fleshing out that character, and that's why there's a possibility. I think with F4, maybe they did that. You could have each episode dedicated to a character in that arc, And I'm very interested to see what they do. This is what I was going to ask you. So let's say it is a movie.
Let me before you get to that. The only problem I see with that, and then. is where this whole idea people might have this issue going on with WandaVision is just like how much, because they say that directly leads into Doctor Strange. They have to be very careful because not everyone, even though they basically have, we're it's going to be at least another year away for WandaVision and Doctor Strange, even more than that. They have to be careful with using the service and how much are they going to rehash in the movie versus how much they're not. I get it to seller, but that's always going to be the back of their mind. Like, how much are we going to? So putting them in there and then doing a movie, yeah, great. But what are you going to have to rehash for those that don't have the service and never watched to begin with?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Chris and I hope you're enjoying another edition of the Marvel Alliance podcast. We're about to throw some ads right now. These ads help build the channel. They help support every single show here on the feed. The thing is, who we're partnered with, we don't get to select the ads, and we don't get to select the volume of the ads, unfortunately. So we're giving you this warning to adjust your headsets, turn down that volume so you can listen to all these ads and support the Geek Ultimate Alliance. I'm going to give you a countdown. You're going to hear some ads, and then you're going to go right back into the episode. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, that's very true. I wonder if you could do the reverse route of you put them in a movie first and then you say, oh, and then we're going to flesh out kind of reverse Captain Marvel style, but in a TV show. So you make a good point about that as far as the debut and their role and whatnot. I was going to say, because some people have speculated this, and I've been backing this so you can go check out my Geek First Ant-Man 2 review. I've always said I'm a big fan of Peyton Reed, and I would like him to direct, because after Ant-Man 2, I just think he nails those family dynamics and whatnot. But the reason I bring him up is because he was attached to direct a Fantastic Four movie at one point, but it was about them in the 60s. And I've seen lots of people speculate of what if, or they should do a fantastic movie of them in the 60s, and they kind of get frozen capstone and they got brought back in. Where are you standing on that? Because I see the pros and cons. I'm not really for or against it, but I was wanting to get your take on that kind of potential route.
Yeah, it's always difficult with retcons and shoehorning things. I mean, I'm not one of these people that doesn't think. I mean, Marvel's obviously done it in so many different ways, and guess what? That's everyone's guilty. Everyone's guilty of it. Every universe is guilty of it. Just because even DC, in the sense with Wonder Woman at that point, you know, it's just we can headcanon our way, and that's okay. I don't fault those movies. I don't fault either side for doing it. But then, when you bring in a big property like Fantastic Four, you got to be careful with it. It is possible, but it's just like, okay, when did the quote unquote accident happen, and where have they been? Why didn't we can always refer back to Nick Fury's thing of when they knew and how they knew. I mean, we basically, with Captain Marvel, we see that we knew of Captain America, Captain Marvel. Okay, if they're in the past, where were they and what happened? It can be explained. That's another one you just got to be careful about, because everyone likes. I could deal with the trolls on both sides at that point, but it's just dangerous to keep having to retcon. I'm okay if they're not in the past. I'm okay with them being in the present. That's when we do our big kind of X-Men episode, we're gonna have to deal with this again. What do we do?
And I feel like with X-Men, which we'll talk about one day, much bigger issue because it's a much bigger world and characters. That's why I've always been like, I get the idea, and because especially it's the Superman debate, right? Lots of people say, oh, Superman movie can't work nowadays, and I disagree. And some people have said like, oh, you can't. Fantastic Four would never work right now because just the way those characters act, and they're just so hopeful. It's like, maybe that's what you kind of need right now, especially in these times, right? So it's just like, I don't think we should need to like, oh, you got to put them in the 60s because they couldn't act that way. No, you need to adapt. You need to put them in there, and that's what comic movies do, right? So if they announce, hey, we're doing a prequel, I'm not going to be, oh, okay, I'm out. I'm not seeing Fantastic Four, but I will be, okay, you're walking on like thin line. Even as stuff as like, in Captain Marvel, I like things for the most part, but you got to be honest, the Cat moment with Nick Fury, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And I didn't hate it. Just a bit. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. And I can go each way. And even stuff like the Avengers name coming from
cheap.
It did. Oh, it did, especially with the backstory and whatnot. And then even with her, like her Jetfire being called Avengers, like, oh, maybe the initial. It's like that's the stuff that I don't like. I like the character fleshing out. I don't like the Hobbit. Hey, Legolas, you've never heard of this guy, but you need to go find this guy named Strider. You don't need to do that. We know they're gonna mean Lord of the Rings. Just don't even like. I've seen the movies. This is the last one. Stop doing that.
Or the notorious. did you hear about the incident in New York on the Netflix shows? Hey, remember the incident 5 years ago in New York? Okay, that's how we're connected. Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me, and I'm a big disliker of prequels. So if they announce that, I will always have a little bit of an asterisk going, okay, you got to be careful. Captain America was so different because we were so early on the MCU that like it's a prequel, but it doesn't really feel like that because like yeah, of course we find Steve frozen, but it was done in different context. Where Captain Marvel did feel a little bit like a prequel. So
I mean, it was in a different sense, but Cap, even in the Ultimate Universe, they kept that story for Cap being he was a soldier from World War II, frozen and then rehashed. So that's never been, that's one that has kept throughout, which is good because it's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, Captain Marvel's a prequel in a different sense.
My kind of last question, because we're going to hit on everything. What do you think they go the route with the casting as far as the ages? Because in the, not that they were old, but in the original Fantastic Four, I think they kind of went more age appropriate as far as, okay, like Reed's a little older, Sue not really that much older. That's kind of the age where actors and actresses had like massive age gaps. But then you have Chris Evans who's playing the younger guy. You have Michael Chiklis who's the older thing. But then you had Fan Forstic where it was like, we're going all hot, young, new actors, up and comers. What do you see? Because I personally think it's going to be the kind of the first route of more established actors with, you know, a young actor made for like Human Torch or something.
Yeah, I think Johnny just has to be the younger actor at that point. And I thought the casting of Michael B. Jordan was a great decision. I think he's a superb actor, and I think when I see it, you know, I when I know a movie's bad going in with it, I'm more looking at, okay, how did these actors and actresses do with the material they gave, you know, at that point. But I think I was quite impressed that they did that. I think it's going to be a mix. I don't think they're going to go as young per se as, you know, who they did cast in the recent Fantastic Four. I could see, like I said, Johnny Storm being young. I think Ben has always been an older kind of guy.
Yeah, I would agree.
I like him as an older guy, and I could see Sue and Reed. Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with them being young at that point. I mean, Johnny's going to be the quote youngest member of the team, so if we want to make him in his early 20s and then maybe put Reed and Sue as late 20s, early 30s,
yeah.
That I think is kind of good, but I think I've always liked Ben being the quote unquote old man. But when I say old man, I'm not talking about 60 years old. You know, I'm just talking about like late 30s, early 40s at that point. You know, so you know and I like the idea of maybe all of them being smart in their own sense. Like when I was doing some reading on the Fantastic Four movie, just because again I haven't seen it. Needed some understanding. I mean, I like that. I think Johnny's an engineer. I thought that was a good idea. And then Ben. Oh, where was it? I had it pulled up. Ben in this one, warm sensitive.
He's like a mechanic or something.
Yeah, mechanic
like
at that point.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's always also kind of been a thing, kind of Ben Grimm kind of thing. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But I do like everyone being smart in their own right. And maybe instead of making Johnny an engineer, maybe make him a biologist, you know, have him play that kind of, you know, he's always going after women and being the hothead at that point, use his biology thing to kind of use those bag pickup lines because Johnny's just like that.
Yeah. I wanted to shout out Tony Walton. He's a listener of ours, Walt Gator 93 on Twitter. He threw some thoughts about this as far as Fantastic Four. He said, I don't think the origin film will be your basic origin film like we got with Man of Steel, Iron Man, Cap, etc. Quite recently, comic origin films with the MCU, it's having a couple flashbacks or filling in throughout the movie of their origin. And then also he kind of said kind of what we're saying as far as Johnny Storm here, that he said he should be a similar or the same age as Tom Holland because they've had lots of big experiences together, great moments in comics, both 616 and Ultimate Universe, which I can agree with that. I think the two things I've seen Fantastic Four the most as far as reading comic books is crossovers, like how we're doing Civil War right now in Comic Book Club, or seeing Human Torch and Spidey pile around. I think the age of Tom Holland is the perfect route to go because then, like you said, late 20s, even early 30s for Reed and Sue, that seems enough of a good gap to be like, okay, they're, you know, in the middle of their life. You get Graham, who's a bit more in the older, maybe 40s. You get this young hothead. I think that's the way to go. And I agree. I don't know if it will be just your straight up origin movie because I feel like Captain Marvel.
I like his idea. I've always liked movies that we can kind of refer back to origins and just get underway. We're just moving
Yeah.
on. I think, I think
Deadpool did that great.
Homecoming did a great job with that. I know he was quote unquote introduced in Civil War, but even still, they didn't dwell on it much in Civil War. We always seem to refer to these days with Rhodey's line, "I'm here, deal with it."
Yeah. And for me, like obviously it was the Fox one, but it was Deadpool as well, where you had lots of flashbacks and lots of origin stuff, but the movie starts with the first 20 minutes of him as Deadpool doing missions, right? And then it's like, okay, how do we get here? And you could do that where they are coming back. It's tough because Van Forster kind of has like a similar vibe as far as like them being experimented on or stuff like that. So like as far as I don't know how much you want to start with them. Okay, we've gone off the ship and then flashback to the past, but there's ways that they could go around it. But I do agree one sense or another. It's not going to be a classic origin because Captain Marvel, we did kind of get that, but I feel with the prequel, this is a little different. The only one I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the MCU, I feel like Doctor Strange was the last full like origin story we really got. Again, Captain Marvel people can make the case. I just feel like with the setup in Infinity War and the way all these other things were working out, you could count it, but I would say true origin just by itself was Doctor Strange, I feel.
Okay, so you're saying from beginning to end that is an origin, not flashbacks. Is like Captain Marvel at that point.
And even
because you're right, because we get more of that through flashbacks. So it is an origin, but your last kind of fully fleshed out. That's the one that you're right. That does stick out in my mind. That Doctor Strange from beginning to end is an origin story with very little flashbacks.
And I remember that because that was a time where it seemed like they were kind of done origin movies, and then they said, no, Doctor Strange is a straight up origin movie. So they have, and we are going to see it. I would imagine with Eternals, but I think the one we're probably going to for sure see it is with Shang-Chi. So there are ones coming up that I think they are dipping their toes back
because they're with some of these characters.
They're creating, well, exactly, and they're also creating their new Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6. Right, they're creating their hopefully new Avengers lineup, their big next Endgame. So I think. I agree with him because of Fantastic Four and their history in movies that you won't get just the classical origin, but I do think origin stories are not done in the MCU yet. So, and I like his all ideas as far as Human Torch and the casting and everything like that. And as far as the flashbacks, I'm kind of on that same realm as far as that. I still think the actual introduction will be in a crossover, but I think their solo film you could get and that's how you could do it, right? Of same thing as Spider-Man, that same way where they're introduced and then you get lots of even Black Panther, same thing. Lots of stuff is referred to the past. They talk about T'Chaka. You find about Killmonger's uncle and stuff, or Killmonger's dad. They flash back multiple times, so they could take that route.
Yeah, and the accident can just be so many different things. They could be researching the snap. They could be one of my things I wrote down was they know of the microverse with Pym at that point, maybe looking at other universe. The negative zone has always been infamous with the Fantastic Four. I know in some of the previous iterations of it, Doctor Doom has had either direct funding or directly involved in the creation of them. It would be interesting because we kind of said it earlier with our fact and fiction. Do we want Doom as the first villain, as has been tried before, or do we want him more in the background and then make him the puppet master and coming in number 2? Could be interesting. You can't have the origin of the Fantastic Four necessarily without Victor Von Doom, but he doesn't have to be the bad guy in this film. He could be the antagonist in the background that they don't realize until the end.
Man, my fact or fictions are getting a lot of previews in these conversations. So
well, good. I think we've got to give him a lot of chew on. We'll just have to see the next few years.
Yeah, I'm very excited for when those announcements come and whatnot. But what else news do we got on the docket today?
All right, so light week with news, but one small, one kind of big one. We'll start with the big one first. Is we'll start with the small one because I know we'll probably want to talk about. So we'll start with the small one. We talked about J.K. Simmons a few weeks ago, saying how he's been contracted for a number of films. Well, he came out talking to. Let's see, who was he talking to? He was talking to Sirius XM. I can't find what show, but he was talking on an interview and said that there's a future for JJJ after a several year hiatus. Obviously, I showed up briefly, and hold on. We gotta love hitting I heard it. You all didn't hear that. Some movie playing in the background when I click on a link. He goes on to say, "Far From Home, done that. There was a brief appearance in that, but." The more interesting and why this got a lot of traction was that he said there's already one filmed in the can. So that got people talking in the films that could it be Morbius? Could it be Venom? Those are the two. Morbius is in the can for the most part, from what I understand. Venom, pretty close to it. So it's either one of those that I think I'm leaning towards more Morbius.
Yeah, I am, in the Tony Stark bandwagon of Iron Man 1. Like, why not have both? But
Yeah.
I think it is Morbius because Venom, Morbius, they're clearly trying to do something with Morbius, right? They have
They're
Michael
really
Keaton.
leaning hard into this. I mean, I'm impressed.
I'm impressed, but I also get major Amazing 2 Spider-Man vibes of, hey, this guy in the dark hat's going to walk by a room filled of a bunch of potential crossover movies, and then nothing happened with it. So that's why I'm always very reluctant when it's Sony trying to set this stuff up. I think it's going to be small cameos, obviously, kind of like Far From Home, nothing too major. I think it will be Morbius. I just don't see the route as far as, obviously, with Venom 2, Venom, There Will Be Carnage, another terrible title. Just, hey, he's in the background talking about this, Cleese Cassie's escape. So they could do that. But if you have me at pinpoint saying which one is it, I think it's Morbius, just because that seems like they're using that as a setup film. There's a few films that do that in the MCU, right? I think there's some of the complaints thrown at Iron Man 2 and Avengers Age of Ultron is, hey, there's stories, there's characters, but they also spend a lot of time just doing setup. And I feel like Morbius is kind of that as far as, yeah, it's going to be a vampire film, but it's also going to be like, here's the 5 different ways it ties into Tom Holland, Spider-Man, Venom, the MCU, and Feige will just be sitting there shaking, going, oh my God, what are they doing to they're massacring my boy. But I think it's Morbius, and maybe even Venom down the line, but I would say Morbius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems the most logical. I'm with you. Why can't we have both? But he was very frank on the idea that there is already one in the can, but obviously he did not say which one, so that led to the speculation and making it a little bit of news. So yeah, I think 2 weeks in a row we got a little J.K. Simmons action. Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
So our last big story this week is the reveal and finally some good footage coming out of Marvel's Avengers. The video game coming out, I believe September
4th. Yeah,
September 4th at that point. Now I know, and I recently listened to you all on Geekverse. At that point, we can all agree that their first outing of showing this footage a year or so ago was a disaster.
Yeah, bad roller coaster.
Oh my gosh, it wasn't even just what is it? The problem is people don't understand, like, oh, it didn't look like this. The problem, they don't look like the MCU character. The problem is they can't do that. For those of you that don't know legal stuff, if they have anywhere close to looking like Robert Downey Jr. or, Scarlett Johansson, they have rights to their likenesses, and that's why it has to look a bit different from them. But where they did, I think Natasha got the one that was her look in the first images of this was just like, oh my gosh,
not great.
Can we get some of the comic book artists to do it right, please?
Yeah, and for me, when they revealed that, so like I said, it was like a roller coaster because at E3, I was very excited. They talked about, hey, this game's coming, and I was just excited because finally we're getting more superhero games, getting Avengers, and I liked everything they were saying and showing at first, but then it just got really muddled. One, I never actually had much. Okay, the actual designs I did not like, but I didn't have a problem with them not looking like the Avengers because this is clearly not the MCU as far as the stories they're telling, but I didn't like the looks in general. I still am a huge disliker of Captain America's look. But now, as the good thing they've been doing is they've kind of unsoured me, and we'll talk about it a little bit because there's choice as far as costumes. But I think for me and a lot of people, when we talk about Geekverse, when we did our E3 watch along, was just it was so muddled of what this game was. Like, you can play alone, you can play the story, you can play friends with the story, and it seems like they're just trying to throw out every single buzzword to try and get your money, but it did the exact opposite. So you had people that were disappointed that there was not much gameplay, very little, and it kind of looked a little generic. You had people disappointed it wasn't MCU or didn't like the looks, or it was just this muddled message. So it went from this is really exciting to oh, this could be a mess. And it still could be a mess, but I think this showing was much better. Because, I want you to start, because, you were pretty excited about this. What did you think about it? Was about 12 minutes overall. We got a story trailer. We had gameplay mechanics, customization, suits. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I thought, I like the idea of the story. They refer to it like an event where something happens, a fight happens, and helicarrier crash and releases the Terrigen Mists, and now we've got they refer to it as A-Day, where the Avengers are blamed for whatever this occurred. Terrigen Mists from the Inhuman kind of background of turning everyone and giving them superpowers, and some can handle it, others can't. and the Avengers are blamed for this, and so I think it picks up 5 years later after it.
Yeah, something like that.
And
The classic new movie thing to 5 years
it's
later.
yeah, and so the big bad of this is AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, led by our buddy MODOK, who they have now labeled as mental organism designed only for killing. And the character, and it is comic book accurate, George Tarleton is the one who gets, he is a victim of A-Day and turns into MODOK and just wants to wipe out any kind of super powered individuals, including himself. And so I think the story is good. Kamala Khan's front and center as are kind of trying to get the Avengers back together and trying to strike back at AIM and get the Avengers name back. I think that we see that, spoiler alert, it appears that Cap is dead as a result of A-Day.
Yeah, he's quotations dead.
Yes, we put quotations dead because I would love to see, do we see a body and how he's dead? No, not dead. He's just dead. He looks dead.
I promise you, Chris, there is no body. The explosion happened. We couldn't. That's why there's some footage of there's a Captain America statue that's in his memory, because there is no way for people. Because even Dylan, who's on our podcast, he's like, "Oh, this is gonna suck if he's not in there." No. This is a classic comic book trope. He will be in this game. He's gonna be playable. I could bet my house on it.
Oh yeah, no, he's going to be there. It just maybe we'll play him in the beginning. There'll be some time where we're not playing him. We get the other choices of characters, but I think the combat, it seems expected. I'm not seeing too much there that gets me really excited. I think the graphics look a lot better now.
Yeah,
I love the idea that we get the different costumes. I love when I saw Mr. Fix-It, Joe Fix-It as an option for. And I applaud them for saying that, there's going to be more heroes. That's going to come as free content. They're not going to charge you for it. Same thing with the costumes and the images at that point. But I think I'm a little more excited than I was. I had pre-ordered it when it first came out and was kind of one of these saying, oh, eventually I might cancel it if they don't get any better.
Hovering over the cancel button.
I don't know the cancel button, but lovely with Amazon, they don't charge it until it ships. So I knew I would have that in the background. But I'm feeling a lot better about this. I have gotten out of the multiplayer game a long time ago. I just don't have the time. So I like that for someone like me to do some of those quote unquote co-op ones. You're not have to get on multiplayer. They will have AI that are part of your team. So that appeals to me because just don't have the time to multiplayer anymore, and I like the different kind of missions and things like that. It does feel very Destiny, which is fine. Steal and borrow from the ones that have done this, mostly correct. Destiny has also stumbled in recent years, but I think this is a game that a lot of us who are fans of the Avengers, fans of Marvel, have not received outside of Lego. And I hope that they really stick the landing. There's still a lot of questions I have because right now the team is very small. And I very much look forward to how is choice working? Is it kind of like Marvel Ultimate Alliance in general that you can kind of make your team at some point? I like the, like in every kind of RPG that's out there, you can kind of build your powers, build your power sets, the combo powers, that's straight out of Lego at that point. I like that they took that idea. So all in all, positive looks for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they sat back after E3 and they said, okay, we got to really, because I feel they knew the tide was turning as far as fan reaction. And
someone, I don't know who had a Marvel at that point, just went to all of them and slapped them in the face, said, make it better.
Oh, 100%. And that's very likely because that happened after Battlefront 2. They had those microtransactions, and word is Star Wars and Disney came down and said, you're going to get rid of this, and this is never going to happen again. And it hasn't. And Battlefront 2, and I know tons of people trash on that game, but it is a game that is, one, lots of fun, but they never recovered from that launch. And that's where...
That's the microtransaction. That was just awful.
Yeah, but the thing is, once they took those out, the game is tons of fun, and it's great, and they have supported that game for over 2 years now, and I own it, and it's a phenomenal game in the way of not like gameplay and whatnot, but just what they did with it as far as how much content they gave us. It was great, but I think that they never recovered from that launch, and that's where I think with Avengers they have to do that, where maybe even at day one, and that's the thing with some of these games, sometimes story could be light or content could be a bit lighter, but it's the hope of what's down the line, what's coming. And this, they were really stressing they're going to do these war room tables, whatever, for the next few months leading up. So they already said their next one, they're going to talk about when the beta is happening, new content, a new post-hero at launch. So I think that's another smart thing to do too, is say, hey, this is a game that comes out. It's not going to shatter the world, but if you enjoy it and like it, maybe in a few months for free, you're going to be able to jump back in, whether, like you said, with yourself, with friends. And I think that's a great option, but they have to nail the launch. As far as not nail the launches, I'm not expecting this to be a 10 out of 10 game. I'm not expecting this to be The Last of Us. That's the fastest selling PS4 game of all time. I'm expecting at least that good. I've kind of talked about before, that 7 to 8 where this is enjoyable. This is fun on myself. This is fun by my friends. And I could, every time in 6 months, hey, there's Black Panther. Oh, this is going to be awesome. Let's try it. And I think my biggest selling points are, the gameplay is what it is. I think it looks fun enough. I love the team-up finishers. I love there's like finishes like a Marvel Ultimate Alliance where Thor can bring down a Bifrost just to take out enemies. So there's that. But I think what they didn't stress enough when they revealed this game is not just the customization and the costumes, but I feel like they didn't stress about how much of fans they were, because when they were saying, hey, we use this attack, it's kind of like what they did in the movies. Hey, you see this costume? It's from this arc. It's from this arc. It's from this story. That's the thing where you don't want to, and again, we talk about this all the time, Marvel, Star Wars, DC, they're all businesses. At the end of the day, they're just trying to make money, right? But you still want to feel that the people, sometimes I don't feel like with Sony, are not just bastardizing the IP. It's not just they have an IP they're putting out there to make money. You want to make money, but at least get some people that are passionate, that want to do this, that want to see the best thing. And I think at E3 that was the problem, where it felt like, oh, this could be a cash grab game, and people started to turn on it and started to go, I don't want to be a part of this. Where now it feels like there's a little more passion. Using MODOK, a deep cut, I think they are turning the tide of these fan reaction as well, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think they've gained back some of the detractors, including myself.
Yeah,
and you, it sounds like. But with the problem with, and I've always been in and out of DLC content, paid DLC content, in the sense of it for a game like this. I think, considering that it's had a recent bad history, in order to get back to some good graces, but still with being very cautious, is their DLC. I don't think they can wait 6 months to have their first major DLC. I think I think no, but I know you used it as an example, but that's sometimes problems with DLC is they wait too long, and I used to play Smash Brothers religiously on Switch, and now they've got their next battle pass. At that point, they released their first character. I was like, picked up Smash Brothers in a while. I kind of did it all at that point, and your new character is not doing it. So that if they want to keep a staying power for a year, they've got to be very strategic. And when they drop this, now probably in a perfect world before COVID, they would kind of drop maybe some content with the movies. Well, shoot, we don't know when that's going to be. So that's a whole new dynamic they've got to figure out. If we can't drop it to promote other movies or to cross promote other things, we've got to make sure that we're going to say, hey, in 1 month at the after launch, in 1 month, you're going to get the first content. In 2 months, you're going to get this. So you want to be kind of quick hitting, but I'm okay with them. Maybe a bigger content update is coming 6 months down the road in order to keep it. But you just got to give them little tastes as much as possible. And I think Spider-Man did a real good job about that with the costumes. And I think their missions were, I think they appropriately spaced out their 3 additional content missions. I think that's something they should emulate.
Yeah, I think you will get another content drop around the time the consoles release, because they did also confirm that whether you buy it for PS4 or Xbox One, you're going to be able to upgrade it for free. So whether that's PS5 or Xbox Series X, it's going to be a free upgrade. You don't have to pay it again. So I think that would be very smart. The game launches in September. New consoles will probably launch sometime in November. That's about a month and a half away, where it's been like enough time where people have played the game, maybe they've done everything, they've done the story, and then right when you're starting to maybe get out, right when you're like, okay, I could move on to other things, they go, here's a Wakanda mission, here's a Latveria mission, here's whatever. So if I have to predict, that would be I think the first time that they're going to release something as far as content. I want to ask you, do you have anybody for the post-launch hero? Is there anybody they're really wanting? Like, if you could have your one draft pick, who is it that you want?
I want someone X-Men in there.
I doubt it's going to be that, though. I think they're going
to. That's my pie in the sky one. If I had to go pure Avengers and keep X-Men out of it, because that's what it is at that point. I would say
lots of people are speculating.
If we can't have Spider-Man's his own, if I want someone Spider-Man like, at that point, I would love to see Daredevil. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
there have
yeah.
been rumors for a while that never came through, because I've heard rumors for a while that there was a Daredevil game at one point that never made fruition. I would like to see Daredevil in full action with that Billy Club.
You never know though, because years ago there's rumors of a Suicide Squad game, and then they went away, and then they are back now, and that's not been officially revealed. But you never know. And there's been recently, the past few months, of there's been hinting about that game again. So I do really want that. I think that Spider-Man is not out of the question, to be honest, because there's a character in the trailer holding a Daily Bugle mic, and
Yeah.
the two people that they did say at E3 when they asked about Hawkeye and Spider-Man, they're like, "Oh, just wait and see." So I don't know if those are the
then Spider-Man, definitely. Spider-Man and Daredevil, I would love to see them.
yeah, I don't know if those are the first ones up, but I think Hawkeye and Spider-Man are a foregone conclusion. For me, it's always just because of what it opens up. I'm definitely in the Black Panther camp because I just want to, one, I think it'll be fun play style, but two, I just think the second you say, hey, we're doing a Wakanda kind of add-on, whatever, DLC story pack, I think that's just a fun world I'd want to experience. I think Hank Pym is still possible because he's in the game, but they just said in this game version right now he's just the quest giver, so he's just a NPC, but there's always a chance down the line. And the other person I think is possible is Captain Marvel, because we've seen they've made a character render of her. If you look at Kamala Khan's bedroom, there's a poster of Captain Marvel, and she's already a fan. So again, I don't know which one would be the post-launch. My personal pick, like I said, is Black Panther, but I think Captain Marvel is also someone down the line you could see. So I am getting more excited, especially Cyberpunk's delayed, so I have my September has opened up. I am always worried we're going to find out with DC fandom that they're going to drop a Batman game in October, so that's just going to be another big thing. But
that's okay. They already have my money. They know it.
Oh yeah, they have my money too. It's just my bandwidth of, do I have enough time to complete all these things with the console? And
trust me, you want to compare backlogs. I not only got a graphic novel backlog, my video game backlog is like years at this point. It's just like, I'll get to it eventually. Why do you buy it now? It says, because I'm going to get to it eventually.
Yeah, retirement. One day, sit down and read all this stuff, play all this stuff. But yeah, I'm more excited, and I think they're doing this other War Room table next month. If they have another good showing, I think they'll start to really move the ball. And again, it's Avengers. It's going to sell no matter what, but it's always kind of like movies, right? You have an opening weekend. It can be massive, but the second weekend is sometimes just as important, because that shows, okay, how much do the audience like this, and how much are they going out to say, hey, you need to see this movie, or are they going back to see it again? So it's the same thing of, they get a big launch, but if people quickly taper off, then it shows, okay, this game was kind of like Destiny, where it had a big moment, but it's kind of tapered off now. So for me, I'm hoping it has a long life, just because, again, healthy video game superheroes in that genre is what we need to kind of get more of them.
And who knows, we might get 2 in 1 year. That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Chris and I hope you're enjoying another edition of the Marvel Alliance podcast. We're about to throw some ads right now. These ads help build the channel. They help support every single show here on the feed. The thing is, who we're partnered with, we don't get to select the ads, and we don't get to select the volume of the ads, unfortunately. So we're giving you this warning to adjust your headsets, turn down that volume so you can listen to all these ads and support the Geek Ultimate Alliance. I'm going to give you a countdown. You're going to hear some ads, and then you're going to go right back into the episode. 3, 2, 1.
But yeah, so awesome. So that's our news for this week. So it's you're up for Fact or Fiction this week, Travis. What you got?
I am. So yeah, this is so I will go back to all the way for what Legendary Bear Geek brought up. So it's kind of similar, but it was in my playbook, so I'm going to throw right now. Fact or Fiction, Michael Keaton will appear in another MCU Marvel film.
As Vulture or not as Vulture?
Just as that character. Yeah, as Adrian Toomes, as Adrian Toomes or Vulture. So not the Sony things, not Morbius, not the potential Sinister Six movie they're talking about. In the MCU, we will see Michael Keaton again. And not a poster, not like this was like him actually in a role.
And that's going to be tough now with that news of him working on DC. You know, I think he, if he does, I'm going to say fact, but I think the original plans for him have kind of skirted. And I'd say there may be one more appearance we get of Michael Keaton. But depending on this DC thing that they're saying is going to be multi-film, they haven't said that his character is multi-film in Spider-Man outside of his appearance in Morbius. So I'd say at best we get one more post Morbius.
Okay. Yeah, I I will go fiction just because I don't know. It's again just because I'm looking at all the variables of you never know with the Spider-Man deal when it could just collapse like it did last time.
And that's what I'm kind of saying. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
when is it going to collapse?
Yeah, and I just wonder what more role he would have in a Spider-Man 3 or a Spider-Man 4 in MCU, because I don't think MCU is doing Sinister Six. That is a Sony idea. That's what they want to do. So I'm going to say fiction for now. And I do agree with you as far as the DC thing, because I see people throw it up all the time of like, oh, what's happening now? And they're like, well, it's just two companies, so it doesn't matter. But it does as far as scheduling. It does as far as even then just branding. They like having certain actors around. And yes, of course, people appear in all movies all the time. For it to happen concurrently, it's a bit more rare. So when people just write off and go, well, it's two different companies, it should be fine. It is. I'm not saying they're like, oh, we can't work with Michael Keaton now. It's not that. It's just, hey, it creates a problem. And if that rumor is true, Michael Keaton as Batman, and he signs on for some 5-movie deal where he's that Nick Fury of the DCU, then it's not even the like, oh, we can't work with him because like Sarah Graves. It's just, well, he's busy now. His schedule, if he's a guy that he did Birdman, he did Spotlight, he does these other movies that are awarded Oscars and lots of clout for like the media and whatnot. I don't think he just wants to just do comic movies. So if he signs on to some big deal at DC, he's only going to have a certain amount of time to do other movies he wants to do. And I don't think he's going to also make that MCU Spider-Man movie. So that's where I'm in the fiction route. Yeah,
I think now that you brought up the point of like, you know, you're mentioning the Sinister Six being more Sony issue than that, then I think I'm gonna have to go to fiction, because that's where I was hoping it would be. But right now we don't know if the deal is going to continue on. I'm going to go with the idea that it's not, unfortunately, and I don't see him in MCU. You're right. So I'm going to change my stuff and go back to fiction.
Oh, there we go. You did that to me on the very first episode, so I've returned the favor, because there was one where I was so sure and you talked me out of it. Maybe he's right. So here again, talking about Doom. This is like the Doom theme. I'm going to see how many weeks we can go mentioning Doom in Marvel Alliance. So Doom's, and this is some we've touched about a little bit, but I want the full just statement, fact or fiction. Doom's first appearance, or Victor Von Doom's first appearance, will be in an F4 film. So that's what I'm saying. His very first. So no like Thanos credit. His first time we ever see Dr. Doom is in the Fantastic Four movie.
I say fact.
Fact? Okay.
I say fact. Like I said, I'll stick with my idea that he may not be the main villain per se, but we will see Doom in Fantastic Four. It's just one of those things that we're all waiting for. And I like your fact saying, end credit, because that's the cheap way out. But I say we say Doom in a proper film.
Yeah, it's tough because it's back to the idea of like, if I knew what they were doing as far as Fantastic Four being a film or kind of the crossover setup, and that's how we meet them, then I'd wonder, because I still think there is a chance that we maybe meet Doom first, and then whether it's Black Panther or somewhere else, and then we meet Fantastic Four. But like we talked about last week, maybe they just set up Doom so he appears in Fantastic Four, like we talked about Latveria and the Prime Minister and everything. So maybe I will say fact, but I would not be surprised if it was fiction. It's not a strong fact, but I'll go with you. Even though, like I said, I still think they could do an end credit thing, right? Like it's the cheap way, but you could get an end credit scene of some guy getting off a plane and it's Victor, or you see the outfit and it's Doctor Doom. I don't know. Maybe that's how the end credit works in the end of a Fantastic Four movie. So that's why I will say fact, but I still think there's a chance he could pop somewhere else. I don't know where, but somewhere. My last one, this is one that people have talked about a lot, but I want, because we've never really touched upon it. Will we see, kind of similar to Michael Keaton, will we see Robert Downey appear in an MCU movie in the next 10 years? Even if I'm not saying he's back as Iron Man, even if it's a cameo multiverse, but he is doing something new. Not like Spider-Man Far From Home, where it's like, oh, we doctored Civil War footage to make it look like him and Gyllenhaal in the same room. I'm saying he comes in to shoot for even a day. Do we get that in the next 10 years?
I see the best chance we have that is Black Widow. I could definitely see it in Black Widow.
Oh, really?
Because of the timeline and everything like that. Even if it's going to be very quick, but I could still see it, and that's something that they could easily keep under wraps because it's going to be very short. So I'll say fact, and I'll call out that I think it's going to be Black Widow. If it's not Black Widow, I don't see it.
Really? Okay, so that's why I'm going fact, because I just see it in multiple spots. I see it in Black Widow. I potentially see it in Multiverse of Madness, because you never know as far as like a cameo or something could go down there. And not that I think that one's likely, but I just wonder, and I know people talk all the time with actors and whatnot, but I just wonder what Robert Downey's career is going to be after. He doesn't need to work as far as the money or anything like that, but I think there's always going to be that pull to be, hey, could you come in and do one more thing? And like I said, even if it's a cameo, even if it's something like he could have easily cameoed, he didn't, and I'm happy, but he could have easily cameoed in Far From Home, right? When Mysterio puts Peter in that vision, he sees like the zombie Iron Man. You could have easily had him appear there. So that's why I think in the next 10 years, there's just multiple spots. Maybe even an Ironheart, they do like a flashback or something, and it's Downey meeting Riri Williams or something like that, because we don't know how they're going to introduce her. And maybe she meets him as a kid, like very young, and she's super inspired by him, similar to Spider-Man, but that is her origin story, right? She becomes like a kind of like trainee of Tony Stark. So and even then, people have thrown up the Jarvis voice thing as far as it could just be his voice, but maybe you see him kind of digitally appear once or twice. I don't know. So I just think there's possibilities, and I don't think it'd be something they would announce. I think it would be something almost like Red Skull and Infinity War, where it'd be like you'd hear a voice and you go, no, that's, or like Harrison Ford in Rise of Skywalker. I would have never thought, because he for years in Return of the Jedi, kill me off, Empire, kill me off, Force Awakens, kill me off, and JJ's like, okay, we'll kill you off. And then they give him a call of like, hey, we need you for one more scene. And I always think there's, right when everyone writes someone off, there's a chance that Downey could just appear, just for a scene, just for something, and that counts. That's why I'm in the fact bandwagon as well.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let us know, listeners, what you think of these, and I've got to figure out some good ones. You know, it's always interesting. I start these. You start thinking, man, what am I going to come up with next? And then I basically just sit down and look at my comic book collection and just think about, what about this? What about this? So
yeah, it's always that, or like the Doom one I asked you is something you had said last week, and I was going to ask you, well, when will we first appear? But that's like, you know what? I'm going to save that for next week, because we already talked
one.
about.
I'm going to get that one. Yeah, no, I like that. So yeah, so let us know what y'all think. And so our last one, as it's been, is Civil War issue number 3.
Yeah, this again, I just gotta say, maybe I haven't said this the first 2 weeks, but either way, I just not forgot, but man, I just love the Civil War comic. So the first one, I say the issue was the setup, and like I said last week, I think this was escalation. This to me was almost it's submitting where everybody is, as far as we knew that in the first one, like, oh, these are the sides, but this is how it's affected them. And you also see on the flip side of the people that want nothing to do with this. But my two call outs are, as far as the biggest things, I think you just see, as far as, like I said, them fully submitting to their positions. Captain America is heroic. He's doing these things, but he's just so much colder than he usually is. He's so kind of, he's a serious character at times, but he's serious in a different route of, he feels so disrespected and so torn, but also just kind of pissed off that he's done with it. And I remember in Endgame when we'd seen some clips, I'm like, oh, that's a mad Captain America. And that doesn't happen that much. And that's what this feels like. This feels a mad, don't mess with me, Captain America. And we talked about this last week where Tony had some signs of, being good. He doesn't know what he's doing. But now we're seeing, also because him and Cap's meeting don't go well, but I feel like now it's just, okay, when we talk about him being a bit more of the antagonist, more villain side, we definitely see a lot more in this issue, from it's how he reacts with Cap or how he reacts to Emma Frost turning him down. I feel like he still has shades of that good guy, but you see him becoming more on the villainous side, in my opinion, more just harsher. So I feel like those are the two things. You just see these characters kind of, okay, the ashes are laid, and now everyone is just figuring out, what do we do next? And I love all the interplay, I'm sure we'll talk about, of them going to multiple people, turning them down, and they all fit character wise. What do you think about issue 3?
Yeah, I liked the moment starting off with T'Challa and Reed, their conversation at that point, and basically how aloof. I mean, this is probably one of the best personifications of portrayals of Reed, is just like, he is so into his work and just completely lost focus when he said, oh, if something was wrong with Johnny Sue's there at that point, and he says, Reed, call Sue.
Yeah, word of advice, call Susan. I put that in my notes, because that is one of my favorite scenes in this issue, because it's just like, not only is that his wife, that's his brother-in-law, their family, and it just seems like he doesn't care, and we know he does, but he just writes it off as literally nothing. And yeah, I agree with you. Just to open up that way was just to show, like, that's what I was trying to get at, as far as like the wheels were motion, but now everyone's fully locked where they are, but they're so locked they can't see past anything, for good or bad. And yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah, and then they followed up by apparently Tony Stark and And Emma had a friends with benefits kind of thing going on for a few years, and I love. So did you tell Scott? Oh, I tell him everything. He knows everything about me. I know everything about him. I said, oh, okay, nice. But I love her point of why she's going to say no, saying, why am I going to stick up and throw my lot in with you when Genosha happened and no one gave a crap about us? No one came to our rescue. No one tried to do anything. I say, good for her. It's just like, we're going to stay out of this. We're going to be neutral. You all fight this out amongst yourselves. I think starting off with those two moments of characters was really strong.
Yeah, I agree, because that's what I always remember reading the first. I'm like, okay, how are X-Men going to factor into this? And then we get the scene, they're sitting down, and just for her to be like, no, we're not going to help you because you guys don't really help us. We're always kind of the bottom of the food chain. Why should we come in now? And especially not even help you guys, but hunt down other people the way we've been hunted. And I really, really enjoyed their conversation. And to me, it just shows, too, they layer that in the first issue of the X-Men are there helping them out. And then that woman with her child said, hey, those are the Sentinels to protect us from the X-Men. So it shows that, like, obviously some stuff's been going down, but it shows that the Earth and the worldview of the X-Men are dangerous people. We can't trust them. So it's this thing of like, why do we even want to get involved? And same thing with T'Challa. It was good of him just being like, hey, I don't like it when America gets involved with my business, and I don't think they'd like the same. And even Reed's like, oh, well, they would be disappointed in it. And he just kind of like brushing him off, like, it doesn't, like, this is what's happening. And we get that mini scene too of Doctor Strange he's pretty much just meditating somewhere waiting for it to pass over, because I love the last time we saw him was he saw the wash, he's like, nothing good will fall, and then he's gone. He's out of there. He's like, oh yeah, I'm meditating. No, he's just in some hotel somewhere being like, no, I don't want to be a part of this. It's gonna be a mess. But yeah, the dichotomy of the X-Men in this was great, and it made complete sense for them to sit out of it. I applaud them for that, because you could easily put them in there, but it was perfect character work.
Yeah, and I think we see some of our heroes, our Cap's team taking on identities when they need to go to ground. That was some cool little banter back and forth. Yeah. But I mean, the main issue of this issue is the first kind of fight that we get between Iron Man's side and Cap's team, and I mean, they did not disappoint. I think McNiven does such a good job with putting as much into these characters on a panel as possible. We see Spidey in full action as the Iron Spidey and using his powers all left and right. But I mean, just the brutality in the fight that you already see between Cap and Iron Man, just, good kudos for Cap for pulling one over on him, but man, Iron Man makes him pay for it. But then we get this code name Lightning getting ready to come down, and for those of us that have never read it before, it was a first time reading it, because it's Thor, but Thor's dead at this point in time. And so that was the big shocking moment. Oh my gosh, he's returned. How'd that happen? And that's a heck of a way to end that issue.
Yeah, so for me, when I was reading again, I almost forget that he was dead, because when they're talking about Project Lightning, I'm like, well, this is obvious. It's Thor. Like, even reading that, I'm like, oh, this is such a comic book thing. But then I thought, right, like in this timeline, he wasn't around. And I remember being, wow, what is... Not only the deal Thor is like he's chosen Iron Man's side, but why is he back? Because with him being dead, I guess for me it's just like, because comic books is like, well, they could come back at some point. It was always, how did they do it? But it was kind of another like, oh crap moment. And it is we've talked about that this series has done a good job of big moments, and they always end on a cliffhanger that you want to see more. The first one is, okay, they're after Cap. The second one is, hey, Spider-Man's revealed his identity. The third one is, wow, Thor is alive and he's with Iron Man. And it's just because if you look at Cap's team, which I've always liked, he has some superpowered people, of course, but most of his team is more the street-based people, right? They're more the Daredevils, the Luke Cages. They're on the ground. They're not living those big, fancy lifestyles. They're not working with the government. So it's like, man, they had a fighting chance for sure. But now with Thor, who's a literal god, it's like, oh, this is a massive problem that they're going to have to try to fight. It's just like, I love Daredevil, but I don't know what he can do against, the God of Thunder. So I remember seeing it the first time, just being like, man, this is... I didn't think they were screwed, because okay, it's comic books, there's still some issues left, but I was always like, why would Thor go with them? Not even because I think he'd go one way or another, just because I think they did a good thing in the beginning of showing, okay, Yes, he's clearly dead, so that was a big thing. But they went to T'Challa, who was a leader of a different country. He says no. They go to Doctor Strange, who is, the master of mystic arts, worried about other things in the realm. He says no. And X-Men, who have been dejected from society. So then when you get Thor, it was good foreshadowing. Here's another character who doesn't live here. He's a god. He really has no stake in this fight, but now he's on this side. Why? And I remember it was a lot of and obviously we get some answers, but the build up for 4, I kept thinking why is Thor on this route, because it's not like he's even a much better friend than Iron Man opposed to Cap or anything like that. It was just it took you for a loop. And again, I applaud them because the issue is great. And like you said earlier, the fight, it was great. The fight that Captain America and Iron Man had when he just punches at one point and his mask just completely rips off. We've talked about this throughout the whole series so far, but the artwork has just been fantastic. And I even love that we kind of compare this to the movies. They took something from this comic book at one point when they're fighting and the Iron Man says, my suit knows more about your next move than you do. And we see that in Civil War where they're fighting and then he's like, okay, track his movements. And we see the actual almost explanation of that in the movie. And it's fun. You see all the tracking and then Iron Man kicks his ass. And it's a rare thing because Iron Man's not a hand-to-hand guy. So I love that they kind of lifted that and used that. But the battle, the reveal of Thor, just everything was really well done. Again, it just constantly feels like it's building and getting bigger and bigger. And obviously we're going to talk about next week, but next week it just even gets more so. But it's another good issue.
Oh no, it's I think like you said, it's rare when you get an intro issue where you're going to get a good cliffhanger at that point. But we've had 3 in a row where they did such a great job with it. I mean, getting our first kind of big fight between both sides, that was cool.
Yeah.
Getting to see, and I think this is going to be the final issue. Again, I'm not reading it; I'm reading week to week like everyone else. And I think this is probably the final issue we're going to get with people choosing sides in the sense of your Wakandas, your X-Men at that point. I think we're now beyond that. Now it's time to each side to try to take each other down. Yeah,
100%.
And with some surprise people maybe joining sides, but none of this negotiating anymore.
The other thing I have to show, and this is where I kind of caught on as Cap being so cold. I love at one point Spider-Man's talking about oh, you just need to join and come to our side, and he just is talking about I can't remember the terminology Spider-Man used exactly, but just morality, some about morality in general. And Captain America says oh, don't talk to me about morality. He's like, how does Mary Jane feel about Sandman having her zip code now?
Yeah,
and that's where it's just that is a very cold thing for Cap to say because it is it's not even a joking sense. It just feels like he's literally saying how does it feel your girlfriend?
Well,
she could be killed at any moment, and it's truthful, but it's just he's just so to the point. He's not pulling any punches anymore, and it's strange for me to see Captain America like that in a good way because it shows how big the situation is.
But I think it fits, and I understand what you're saying is cold, but I think it fits because that says to me he thinks so highly of Peter.
Yeah,
and who he was, and for him to do this was such a betrayal in his mind of not only him as a teammate, but him as a person and a friend. And so he's trying to hit him hard, saying, "You're better than this. You've been the one who's been protecting his identity forever. You're not Tony. You're not me. Why are you doing this? This makes absolutely no sense." And that's probably what a lot of people, when he did this, it didn't make sense for that. But also, you had pointed out, who does Cap have? I mean, they were taken out very quickly, but you had Cloak, you had Wiccan that they quickly took out because they knew those were some of their heavy, magic quote hitters.
The escape plan too, because Spider-Man says that,
and they have Cable, but Cable's very much depowered. In this timeline where he is at this point, he's no longer the Cable of old, where his power set is limited. Still good, but not as strong as it used to be. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, our next issue of what I remember certain things that are coming, but now it's trying to figure out in my mind, when are they coming? Yeah,
and it's funny when you talk about the Spider-Man stuff. It feels like even characters on Tony's team, everyone's surprised about Spider-Man, but it feels very disappointing him or very questioning him. Even T'Challa brings it up of he took his mask off, and Reed's well, yeah, of course he knew it was right and everything like that. But T'Challa, you can see, is I'm not really buying this. Like, have you guys kind of coerced him to do this? And it just feels like everyone, that's where, like you said, in the future, I don't think there's much more a line drawing in the sand, because that was it. Spider-Man doing that. It's like, oh man, he did it. And it is funny, like, people have talked about that before, of Spider-Man as a character, which I agree with to a point. It's just more kind of for fun debate, can sometimes be a bully, because he's a guy that'll be like breaking your arm and then making some quip in your face. It's like these villains, no wonder why they just hate his guts, because this is a guy that just like hammers you down like with his words and his fists. And it's funny when he's on the other side and he is taking barbs at a character we know and love, especially someone like Captain America, one of my favorites. And for me, I'm personally on Cap's side in this. So when we're in the middle of battle and he's just making these like snide comments, it's kind of like, screw this guy. Like, I want Cap to get his hands on him and just like teach him a lesson and teach him some manners, because he is just such like a arrogant little guy, you know. So it is funny to get that switch of dynamic, to see people go after our heroes that we'd usually be on their side, but this time we're not. So again, without the whole comic series so far, just the dichotomy of switching positions, switching characters, ideals worked very well, because they've done it in a way that worked but didn't feel too cheap. So, and I'm excited for the next few issues, as we kind of know it's coming up, but it's nice to get a refresher.
Oh, exactly. So issue 4 next week. It's either probably going to be next week or the week after, listeners, that will give our new choices for that. Like I said, going on vacation for a little bit, so it'll depend on kind of coming back from that, where we're at and what the news is for the week. But we'll figure it out. Like I said, either next week or the week after, we'll give you our new choices for our next comic book club. So
yeah, because we still got 4 issues right of this, so we got time to announce it and let everyone vote. So yeah, we have some ideas of potential themes. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see what's next, because this has been fun.
Yeah, so good. So yeah, another great episode coming to an end. So again, thank you as always, Travis. It's always fun talking some Marvel. It's fun talking about any kind of geekdom. But yeah.
Yeah, no, Volume 5 in the books. As always, you can find me, Travis B. Snail, on Geekverse everywhere. Well, I guess on Twitter, but at Geekverse as well. Right now, we're doing a Christopher Nolan retrospective, but we're doing a bunch of other stuff. Kind of news has been flowing and everything. So we're trying to do more live casts. You can find me here every Monday. You find me guesting throughout on the channel every once in a while. But yeah, just go check out this channel, subscribe, drop us a review, head over to Patreon to get early exclusive ad-free stuff. And then thank you very much for another good volume, Chris. This was a good one. I'm excited for next week, because we potentially have some good topics to talk about, because it might be lighter, but we might have something prepared. So.
Yeah, I think we've got a good backup plan, being that it's the holiday week down, at least here in America. So
yeah, well, we got Canada Day too, July 1st, so we got stuff. But we got nothing going on. We got no fireworks. We got nothing. But I got some time off, so just enjoy it. Do some barbecue and have some good food, stuff like that.
Exactly. So, but you can find me on Twitter at Chris Balga. The show on Twitter is Marvel A Podcast. You can find that, and you can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. And feel free to tweet, email, put out their feedback, fact or fictions, questions, topics you guys and gals want us to cover at that point and talk about. And as always, if you like what you're hearing, please take some time to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever your podcatcher choice may be. And as always, listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Travis. And we will leave you, as always, with Excelsior, true believers.